Welcome back, everybody. Reap the Harvest, the Matt Tack Show. What's going on, Matty? Matt?
What's going on? What's going on?
Man, we're just getting it done in the face of a pandemic. So we've got the coronavirus spreading worldwide, shifting
Yep,
markets. People are at home. You've got a beautiful guest with you today, and
absolutely.
we're just trucking through. And exactly what we were talking about is positioning ourselves online, even through something like this, remaining positive, remaining calm, and sticking to our core values and sticking to the things that we preach and we practice of consistency, persistence, and just
Mhm.
pushing through anything that gets in our way. And so that's what we're here doing today, hopping on a call, getting these podcasts done, and making sure everybody understands that, like, we're not giving up, we're not going away, we're pushing through, we're keeping our faith, and holding it down for our families and doing everything that we possibly can do to get out the other side of this whole thing. So how is this whole thing affecting you guys at home?
Yeah, man. Good question. We're just keep perspective, and I think that's what it comes down to is keeping perspective. Um, that's why I got this little one here, man. If everyone says hi to little Emery Grace, uh, she wasn't able to go to daycare, and wife works, I work, so we're just making do, right? And we're just keeping perspective and kind of how we're going about our day, how we're going about our year, but we're keeping our vision in mind, and it's all about keeping that end goal, that why, that purpose that we all have. And so, I mean, that's ultimately why I can sit here with a smile on my face, right? My why's a lot bigger than any pandemic that can come after me. She's a
Mm.
lot bigger. And, we just live in a fear based society. And I think that's what, we want to talk about that today and kind of highlight that. What we're seeing is just like an aggressive move. I'm checking out the stock market. We're checking out the news channels, media outlets. That's all we're doing, right? We just want to stay alert, stay abreast. And it kind of reminds me of Hurricane Irma a little bit. We rolled through Florida. You're looking at this thing, and I don't want to downplay COVID-19. I don't want to
No,
downplay
not
the
at
virus.
all. Not at
It's
all.
a very real thing, and we do need to practice social distancing. We do need to flatline that curve, right? Super important. All these things are very, very, very important. So I don't want to downplay things, but I also want to talk about fear. We're a society that's built on fear, right? Our media outlets only want to talk about, hey, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. And probably about 2 years ago, I started limiting any type of news outlets, news channels that I participated in, that I saw, just because it is negativity. What am I bringing into my mind, constantly, perpetually, every single day? And I knew that it was important for me on how I was going to impact people that I surrounded myself day to day, week to week, year to year, right?
Mm.
And so there was a massive, massive change in that process. And when I look at news and media outlets that are all fear based, what does it do? That's part of the reason why we're in this pandemic right now, is because number one, banks shift the market. So the banks ultimately, they got scared, right? And did the initial pullback as far as the implications on the marketplace. Then what does that do when the banks react, right? Well, then everyday people react and they pull their money out. I was talking to a guy last night. He went to the bank and literally was pulling cash out. That's the worst thing you could do right now, is pull cash out of the bank accounts, because it's fear based, right? All he's doing is watching and internalizing. He's just watching the news media outlets that force this fear. Oh, I got to go grab my money. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you right now, that's impacting every single American across the board. Everyday hardworking Americans, that is the worst thing you could do for them, because we need those people. Me being an entrepreneur, right? I'm trying to set myself up for success, right? I'm trying to create this um, visual in my head of how, number one, I can be an impact, how I can add value. And then number two, like how can actually I be on the right side of this? Whenever there's a market shift, people can be on the right side or the wrong side. And typically you're going to get a lot of people on the wrong side that said, hey, look, oh man, I wasn't ready for this, market correction, or I wasn't ready for this, nor is anybody. but how do you react to it? How do you strategize? And I've been sitting down and just strategizing, right, of how we can create an impact, how we can create value to other people, but not live in this fear-based society, not look at, okay, I'm not being negligent either by any means. You definitely want to keep
Well,
yourself
no, you want to take the necessary
um,
precaution and all those things, right?
absolutely, man. So you want to keep yourself abreast in those situations, and you don't want to be negligent, but at the same time, you want to strategize on how you can stay ahead of it, right? One of the greatest analogies that actually Russell Brunson actually said about Catch Me If You Can, right? This guy taught I believe it was a psychology class, a college psychology class. Had never taken a psychology class, had never taught, instructed, but was able to teach an entire semester of a collegiate level college class. And they asked the dude, like, this is based on a true story. It's like, how did you do that? How did you just teach kids? You had no idea, and you taught kids a full semester of a psychology class. How'd you do it? He's like, dude, all I did was stay one chapter ahead. And dude, isn't
Right.
that life, right? You got to stay one chapter ahead. You always got to stay one chapter ahead. And I think that, in this day and age, how reliant we are on the media. Going back to Hurricane Irma, I remember when things shut down, right? It's going to be the biggest storm in the entire world. It's going to take over everyone. And I'm not downplaying what it did to Puerto Rico. I'm not downplaying those other things, right? But it once again was driven by fear. And we're watching this storm go at 14 miles an hour, right? It was a NASCAR race going 14 miles an hour. The
Mm-hmm.
media was going the pace of a NASCAR. The storm was going 14 miles an hour. So we're sitting in front of it. What's going to happen? What's going to happen, right? Fear-based. We had to leave. My wife was actually pregnant with our second child at that point, so we had to leave. We didn't want the barometric pressure pushing our baby out a little too early. So, anyways, it's one of these things, man, that we live in this fear-based culture, right? And how do we
Yep.
counteract that? How do we just counteract that with positivity? Like, what things are going on that we can actually enhance the lives of others, right? And that's what I'm like more so trying to do with anyone. That's what I'm trying to do with this little one, Emery Grace. We've kind of changed our mentality, even on this podcast, where we're going to go in 15-minute sprints. We're going to add just compound value into your life, as much value as we can give you,
Right.
in quick 15-minute sprints, because we know we're observant to the Americans that maybe don't have an hour, right? So we just want a power punch, impact type value that we can give to you. And
Right.
so does Emery. So does Emery Grace. And the one thing I want to add on that, Pat, is that Warren Buffett had mentioned something earlier this week that was like so important to me, that I put in my notes to talk about today, because I think it's a huge value, right? And let me get Emery in here, just because everyone's got to see how cute she is, man.
They're watching for her anyway.
Yeah, dude, all of them rough. I got 3 girls, but hey, so Warren Buffett said a quote today, and it was amazing. It was an amazing quote, and it was about legacy, right? And how are you gonna impact today, right? How are you gonna plan today for 3 generations? But he put the quote like this, and I hope it changes people's lives. I hope they actually start thinking about this. He said, rich people plan for 3 generations. Poor people plan for Saturday night.
Right. And I've seen a couple memes that are like, poor people are stocking up on toilet paper and rich people are looking to, capitalize on market corrections. And we don't ever want to like point fingers or any of that stuff. But listen, there's a difference between people who are successful and high achievers in the way that they think and everybody else. It doesn't mean it's always rich and poor, stupid and smart. I would not consider myself the smartest person in the world. And I can tell you right now, on the down low, I won't name any names, multiple high-level influencers called me last night because they know I'm keeping it positive. I'm putting positivity out there. And they wanted to know what my opinion was about stuff. Like I said, those guys will remain nameless, but, we're talking people with millions of followers on these platforms that are like, hey, man, how you doing? How much money you got in the bank? You going to be all right? This and that. And the other thing, man, you staying positive? A little bit freaking out a little bit. And I'm like, listen, listen,
You know what though?
listen,
It's
there's
I
certain
took it
things
in
we can't
terms,
control.
you aren't in control, but I took it in terms of this, right? And I'm a man of faith, number one. That's my
Mm,
main importance in life. That's my why. That's my focus, right? So I'm a man of faith, number one. And I know everyone out there isn't, but that's my number one, right? And so I actually took that message, right, in a spiritual context. How can you be rich spiritually? And how can
right.
I plan for 3, 4, 5, 6 generations spiritually? How can I
That's a great
impact
way to put it,
spiritually, number
because it's
one?
all about what we're internalizing right now. If we're internalizing positivity, that's what's going to come out.
Absolutely, man. So I think and that's where my mind was going with media outlets. Media outlets are all fear driven. They're gonna drive fear in you all the time. But how do you react to that? How do you internalize that? Or if you do need to stay abreast, if that's your job or whatever you do, how do you just counteract with that? How do you feed yourself at the end of the day? Because your cup has to be filled, right? It can be, you can take away, but you got to fill it back up. And that's what I love doing more than anything, is I love filling people's cups. So it's a positive, with positive
Mm.
just a positive attributes that I see in myself and other people. I like identifying those in other people and filling their cup. So that's my first and foremost most important thing. I was actually talking with a guy last night. It was incredible. But one thing that I've identified this year, I go to a church where there's actually quite a large like homeless society at that church. And dude, for some reason, dude, I do not like germs. Don't like them. I know realize that it's just not my thing, right? It's no one's thing. Who actually loves germs? But I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. And what I
Right.
decided to do this year that was kind of put on my heart, dude, is to release the energy out of me and touch those people. Because there's one thing that, and I
Mm.
believe I mentioned this in the past, but there's one thing in society in general that I think is lacking towards maybe the homeless society or the houseless society, as my pastor likes saying. I love that terminology, but it's failure to thrive, right? And when you can release that energy in somebody, sometimes they don't need a buck, they don't need $2, you don't need to throw money at it. Sometimes they just need a hand, on their shoulder, a pat on the butt maybe, or something like that, to get them going. But what I've done this year is shake people's hands or even give them a hug it puts me in a really uncomfortable situation. But if we are not putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, we aren't growing. And I think that's why our society is so based on fear. Is if we aren't putting ourselves in those uncomfortable situations all the time, if we are not putting ourselves out there, we are not growing, right? And if we inject
Absolutely.
ourselves with fear, that is how we're going to react. We're just going to react with fear in everything. And in this case, man, I encourage everybody. And I'm not downplaying again the COVID. I'm
No,
not
no, I get it.
downplaying any of this because it's a very, very real thing. But what we need to come to terms with is really establishing our why in life, our vision of where we want to go,
Mm.
and what's the purpose up to that. And then ultimately, how do we really build? How do we put everyday things? How do we habit stack things into our lives that create that momentum? Because life is based on momentum, right? And now we have a lot of negative momentum going on right now. There's just a ton of negative momentum, a lot of feedback. Trump's doing this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? It's all this
Right.
political feed that we're getting.
I really
What
hate the back and
positivity? What
forth. I
what are
really
we
don't
putting
like that.
into our lives
Mm.
that ultimately is going to drive that upward channel, that upward momentum that we can create just new verticals, right? I love the term verticals.
We know.
But then also be vulnerable with it too, where we are constantly growing. We're constantly looking for new opportunities of a positive, and that positivity, I can guarantee you, will impact at minimum 3 generations, right? So you are not only impacting yourself, you're not only impacting, and if I encourage you, if everyone goes to my page, so I'm on official Matt Tack Instagram, please follow me. And then you'll see a lot of the kids, man. I'm a big family man. And then if you could get on my Facebook and even like this podcast, I would encourage it. We're definitely just only trying to add value to people while doing this. We're actually going to be bringing and do some power punches with these 15-minute sessions of really people that are going to add value to you. But for me, it's really how do we adapt? How do we learn? And I was just listening to a couple people today, Jim Quick being number one, if we can tag him. Jim Quick, phenomenal educator in the space of just learning more quickly and the neuroplasticity and reading quicker and identifying things. It's amazing things, but I'm big on the RAS, the reticular activating system, and what we identify as true and false, right? And when we do that, is we need to start incorporating. We have our frontal cortex. We feed information into our brain. And we're going to identify in our RAS what is truth, what is false, and what we're going to be scared of, what we're not going to be scared of, what's going to make us happy, what's going to be our growing passion. And all those things are things that can impact you. And when you make that first decision, it's a compound effect, right? And when you can stabilize it and really compound it, you're really you're gonna feel better. It's just like the way the mind and the body works, right? Is you're gonna feel better. That's why Pat right now here is a sweaty mess right now.
Yeah, I'm a little sweaty because I got up.
Is this dude?
Around.
There we go. Get us some. And dude, he's a sweaty mess right now because he's taking control of his mind, body, and spirit. I do spirit, mind, body. I do all three of those things, but my spirit comes first, obviously. But you want to constantly be growing and feeding yourself with positive information. So by the time it gets to the reticular activating system, you're identifying positivity with truth, positivity with truth, positivity. How often are people going to be like, no, that's false? When, hey, Pat, dude, you're a good looking dude. I love your full head of hair and you got a great t-shirt on, dude. No,
thanks, buddy.
That's false, right? No, no, that's positive, dude. Pat, you're looking good today, man. I don't know what you did. That insanity workout is getting you chiseled, bro. You were looking a lot better than yesterday. That's going to impact him tomorrow. Those simple words of positivity that we can grow from are going to allow us to get better as people, better as human beings, and better human the race in general. So I know we've been going on, but we want to keep these sessions 15 minutes. These are going to be power punches. This is just going to accelerate your day. I hope this accelerates not only your day, but a lifetime, that it impacts not only this generation, but 3 generations. Plan for a minimum of 3 generations, right? Number 1, spiritually. Number 2, I would love financially. But I'll tell you the truth. 2 weeks ago, my grandmother passed away. I looked at her in the casket. She wasn't a very wealthy woman, but man, was she unbelievably wealthy spiritually. And she not only there was a minimum of 4 generations there that she single-handedly impacted. So shout out to Rhea Gilmore. I love my grandfather too, Bill Gilmore. Dude, he looks just like Super Mario. We can post an image of him. Dude, I love Pat. We'll dedicate this episode to them.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's just an amazing thing when you can get to the end of a life. And then I can look at my grandma in her casket at 89 years old and say, you impacted a generation of people, and you will have generational impact upon me because I'm not trying to impact more generations. And you had you had that focus. You had that impact on me. My parents had an impact on me. I'm trying to impact more and more generations. So I think ultimately that's the power punch for today. Let's accelerate. Let's be positive. And let's not live in the fear-based society, because I think there's too much perspective. We're given too much. And we live in a great, great society, a great world. There's great people out there. And let's make sure that we're being positive, and there is a road ahead.
Absolutely. And I think that capping it off, we talk about reaping the harvest. And when we talk about planting seeds to get that harvest. And I think that when you plant seeds of gratitude and confidence and perspective and all these
Mhm.
things. We need to be very, very thankful for the life that we have, because I think this is a wake up call of how fragile that life really is, and how it can be disrupted so easily. And so let's just be thankful moving forward. Beautiful kids. I got my beautiful daughters, sliding down the little slide into the pool outside, and it's a beautiful day, and everybody's okay. And we go from here. So plant those seeds of positivity and confidence and perspective, and you will reap the harvest later. So
Absolutely. Please
until
like my
next time.
channel, watch our podcast. Emery Gray says, we out. Deuces.